The day I handed my daughter the spare key to my house, I thought I was just being a practical old man. I was 63, navigating life alone after my wife passed, and my daughter constantly reminded me of my vulnerability. I should have listened to the quiet warning bells ringing in my chest right then. For over 3 decades, I made my living as a meticulous structural engineer, designing foundations that could withstand immense pressure. I raised my only daughter mostly by myself after her mother fell ill, pouring my entire soul into her future. I built my home in Western Tennessee with my own 2 hands, believing that love and sweat meant something lasting. My daughter Kimberly is 41 now, and my earliest memories of her are filled with warmth and innocence. She used to sit on my garage workbench as a little girl, proudly handing me mismatched tools while I smiled and pretended she was helping. She inherited her mother's bright gaze and infectious laughter, creating a bond so profound it sometimes physically ached. Then came her husband, Vance, a man I never fully trusted despite trying my absolute best for Kimberly's sake. He possessed an unearned arrogance, constantly quoting financial figures at dinner parties to impress people who frankly did not care. Vance worked in real estate development, though by the time this nightmare began, his actual employment situation had become dangerously vague. They lived in an ostentatious neighborhood complete with a massive neighborhood homeowners association and a decorative front fountain. Kimberly used to laugh about the sheer size of the property, calling it entirely too much house for them. However, she always defended the purchase by echoing Vance's favorite phrase about building long-term equity. When my retirement celebration arrived on a chilly Thursday evening, the contrast between my true friends and Vance became undeniable. My closest neighbor, George, and my lifelong military brother, Arthur, were there to toast my long career. Kimberly attended alone, claiming Vance had an urgent business meeting, which I quietly accepted without pushing further. As the guests departed, Kimberly stayed behind to help me clear off the kitchen counters and wash the remaining dishes. She casually asked if I had finalized my estate planning and will, prompting me to reply that everything was handled. She dropped the subject immediately, but she spent an unusually long time retrieving her coat from my private office. Suddenly, the people around me began treating me like a fragile glass figurine before I had even aged a day. I was still running multiple miles every weekend analyzing complex engineering blueprints faster than professionals half my age. Yet, Kimberly started calling me multiple times a day under the guise of making sure I was eating. Even more troubling, George informed me that Vance's truck was repeatedly spotted idling in my driveway while I was away. I avoided a direct confrontation because I was raised to maintain peace and harmony within my family at all costs. My late wife always teased me that I would gladly shake hands with the very person robbing me blind. The real manipulation surfaced in late spring when a minor knee injury became the catalyst for their coordinated plan. Kimberly insisted I see her specialized physician and strongly suggested I centralize all my financial and property paperwork immediately. She smoothly mentioned that Vance's cousin was a prominent estate attorney who could restructure my assets entirely for free. The trap was closing, but I kept making excuses for her behavior, telling myself she was simply a worried daughter. Everything shattered on a warm Sunday evening in May when I arrived early for a family dinner at their house. Walking up the front steps, I heard Vance's booming voice echoing clearly through the open kitchen window. Vance told Kimberly they needed to file the legal paperwork before I started asking questions, so I could not challenge it. My own daughter responded in a quiet, trembling voice, noting that I trusted them completely and would not suspect anything. When Vance explicitly stated that my house was the entire point of the plan, my heart shattered. I stood paralyzed on that porch for several minutes, listening to their neighborhood fountain while my world completely unraveled. Instead of knocking, I quietly walked back to my sedan and drove home in a state of hyper-focused clarity. I refused to panic, scream, or make reckless phone calls, choosing instead to handle this with engineering precision. The following morning, I contacted my trusted family attorney, a brilliant 72-year-old man who feared absolutely no one. After hearing the details, he urgently asked if I had accidentally granted anyone access to my sensitive accounts. I realized Kimberly's true motive for lingering in my private home office weeks prior. I checked my filing cabinet and discovered the property deed folder had been shifted half an inch to the left. Over the next 3 weeks, my attorney and I secretly updated my will and secured the property deed permanently, We established strict transfer protocols and moved my funds into a secure, secondary banking institution in Nashville. I purposefully maintained my normal demeanor during subsequent family dinners, acting completely unaware while analyzing their subtle behavioral fractures. The climax arrived on a June afternoon when Kimberly requested to drop off a homemade meal at my place. Sensing the impending trap, I asked my friend Arthur to arrive at the house around 4 o'clock. Kimberly arrived early, nervously checking her mobile phone before asking to retrieve a specific record from my office filing cabinet. I insisted on walking with her, watching her face pale slightly as she realized her direct access was blocked. Inside the folder, she found cleverly fabricated, legally meaningless documents my attorney had planted as bait. Moments later, Vance bypassed the front door using a copied spare key, holding a legal folder under his arm. He froze when he saw me standing there, and the sudden arrival of Arthur completely shattered his composure. We all sat at the kitchen table, where I calmly revealed that I knew about their fraudulent filing scheme. I informed them that my assets were legally protected, my locks were changed, and their copied key was useless. Kimberly burst into heavy tears while Vance muttered an excuse about a misunderstanding, grabbed his folder, and fled. My daughter eventually moved back into her childhood room after separating from Vance, ending his toxic financial influence. Today, Kimberly is working hard and rebuilding our fractured bond across the very kitchen table they tried to steal. The house remains entirely mine, and I have finally learned to trust my internal instincts before it is too late.